Today on the TBN Israel podcast, Israel strikes deep into the heart of Iran.
We've been waiting for this strike for a long time. And
3.5 weeks.
3.5 weeks.
3.5 weeks. Since October the 1st.
October the 1st, yes.
We've been waiting since October the 1st to see Israel's response to the Iranian ballistic missile attack that happened on October 1st. And just a few nights ago, that finally happened with a decisive, a photographed, a well-documented attack deep into the heart of Iran.
These days, if it's not photographed and documented, it doesn't count. You know?
It didn't happen.
Yeah, definitely.
It didn't happen.
So let's compare. I think, okay, on October the 1st, Iran launched 180 ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and other missiles towards Israel. Yes. Okay, only one missile killed a Palestinian, and that's it.
The one in Jericho.
Yes. And that, except for that, there was some hits to a military base, but nothing that wasn't repairable or nothing significant.
We lost no valuable assets.
Exactly.
That was on October 1st.
Yeah, no planes
no civilians hurt or killed, no military assets compromised.
Yes.
And here's what happened here. We'll give the headlines first and then we'll dive into the details. Highly sophisticated, highly coordinated, highly orchestrated. Yeah. I love that word. Highly orchestrated attack. More than 100 airplanes or aircraft are involved in this.
At the same time. Yeah.
Simultaneously.
Attack jets, refueling jets, like while the planes are in the air, which is also like makes it able to do multiple rounds of strikes in one go instead of coming back to Israel and then fight again.
3 waves of strikes into Iran, each one knocking out different systems, and we knocked out. And again, these are just the headlines. We're going to dive into the details in a couple minutes. We knocked out their manufacturing facilities for essentially the fuel systems for the ballistic missiles. Yeah. We knocked out a bunch of their S300 surface-to-air defense systems. Yeah,
it's basically like their Iron Dome anti-rocket defense system, but Russian-made.
It's the best of what they have, not the best that Russia makes, but the best that they have of Russian equipment. We knocked out a drone manufacturing facility, the same drones that attacked Israel on several different occasions. And we knocked out several other strategic, quote-unquote, sites, one of which is actually close to Tehran, only 40 kilometers, I believe, away from, which in freedom units is 25 miles, something like that.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm guessing.
Okay, guys, if you like to receive more content like this one and more videos from Israel, we have a lot of ideas, but we need your help. So if you want to support TBN Israel financially, please go to the link below or visit our website at www.tbnisrael.com/give, and we'll create more content of what is happening here in Israel.
So let's go back. We've been...
before you need to introduce yourself.
Yes. Well, nice to meet you. I am Yair Pinto.
And I'm Shoshani, and this is the TBN Israel podcast.
Yes, one day we will have a name for this podcast.
I'm happy with it.
Until then, it will stay TBN Israel, the podcast.
So let's go back to what happened. We've been in Israel, and I think much of the eyes of the world have been directed at this area, waiting for the expected retaliation. And it's been weeks of negotiation, which is an interesting term.
Negotiations with the United States and with our allies mainly.
Between the Iranians making statements, the Israelis making statements, the Americans making statements about what is an acceptable response to the Iranian attack in October 1st. Yeah. And again, to remind people, Iran sent 100, let's say close to 200 ballistic missiles. They didn't cause substantial damage, but quite a few of them did hit, and did hit military facilities.
Definitely.
And Israel said it will be unprecedented. Israel said it would be an attack that you haven't seen before, and it was. Yeah. It was an attack that the Iranians have been waiting for a long time. They've been going back and forth with public sort of statements of what we're going to do. And the Americans, interestingly, have been very, very, very vocal, going all the way to the point of actually leaking classified information from Israeli documentation on what Israel is planning to do to the Iranians.
Because they really did not want this to escalate into a regional war. So they wanted to make sure that the Israeli response does not include oil refineries, which is the key pillar of the Iranian economy, or their nuclear facilities, which is, their jewel, their crown jewel in I don't know, 20 years.
The fact is, it has been a regional war for the entirety of this war. Yeah. It hasn't turned into a global impact regional war.
I think the Americans don't want to get involved before the elections, like with boots on the ground of U.S. troops.
So last week there was this this press conference where President Biden comes out and talks about Israel's response.
Yeah.
And he says Israel has the right for self-defense. And we're I don't remember the exact word he uses, but it's something along the lines of we're discussing or on the table is, he alludes to, an attack on possible nuclear facilities, possible oil refinery or oil storage facilities.
Boom! The prices of gas skyrocket 5%.
That hour, the prices of oil go up. And I think it's less than 24 hours later, maybe the next morning, he comes out with a different statement, retracting all of that and saying, no, we call for Israel to show restraint. We call for Israel not to attack anything that relates to oil facilities. And to explain that, and we've reported on this last week, the Iranians' MO, their modus operandi, always has been, the way their navy's built, we've talked about this extensively in the past, it's all through the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps.
Yeah.
And the way that the military unit operates is, it operates by carrying out acts of terrorism and sabotage. They don't go to full-on war. So what they have is they have a surface vessel fleet of small boats, fast boats, that have the ability to, within hours, cripple the transfer of any crude oil in several straits. Let's call it in the Arabian Sea area, Bab el-Mandab and several other areas in the area of Iran. And that influences the Saudis, that influences the UAE, specifically Abu Dhabi, that manufactures a lot of oil and ships it around the world. And of course, Iran itself. So they're saying, they're putting a loaded gun on the table, and they're saying,
no more oil for nobody.
It's Act One. Here's the gun. And what this is if you attack our oil refinery stations, or our ships, or our storage facilities, you too will have no oil to export. Yeah. And they've done that in the past.
And they did it successfully.
They attacked the Saudis in the past, and they did it very successfully. So that, and just to put that in proportion, if that happens, oil prices go up tens of dollars, maybe $100 a barrel, not overnight, but within days. Because what it means, it paralyzes some of the biggest oil exporters of the world, preventing them from exporting any crude oil or refined oil anywhere.
And that's a very big deal, especially before an election. That you want to show that, the oil prices go down, which is a key thing in the American economy.
And so, rightly so.
Yeah, makes sense. I guess everybody's driving there like nobody's walking.
Just to show how broad. Here's a quick lesson in cultural insensitivity by Mati and Yair. Anyway, so
let's go back. Okay, so
all this.
So what did we attack, Mati?
So we attacked what we know, and what's interesting is I was texting on the night of this attack with several friends outside of the country, and several of them were saying that there's no information about what we attacked, and it was intentional. Israel sometimes, and you sort of have to follow the headlines, when we want people to know exactly what's being attacked, it's clear. It's clear.
It's clear, pictures.
An hour after the attack, here's the site, here's the target, here's the damage, here's what we did.
Here's before and after.
Here's a pre-recorded interview with the pilots that were part of this. And in this case, it was very, very different. The IDF releases footage of planes on the ground, and we'll get to that. A highly controlled message of what happened here, with very little reference to the exact damage and exact targets within Iran. And what that allows is, it allows the Iranians to say it wasn't a severe damage. That essentially gives them the ability to say the damage was small enough to not have to retaliate strongly.
And that's what they did.
That is exactly what they did.
Yes, they said that the damage was very minor. At the beginning, they even lied.
So there was no
saying
damage.
that it was only, the explosions were only interceptions of their anti-rocket defense systems and other aerial defense systems. But that proved to be wrong, as time progressed.
And that's a crazy thing now in this day and age. There is nothing secret, especially when it comes to large-scale attacks.
For sure.
There are images, and it took, 2 days, and you have The Guardian and several other news outlets that have satellite imagery of sites. Again, we're talking 40 kilometers, 20-something miles southeast, I think, of Tehran. Sites that are strategic sites for their government, for their army, that had a building in them a month ago, and now there's a crater. So they can say whatever they want, but there's an image showing that it was damaged. And then someone else comes and analyzes and says, well, this was an S300 battery, and this was a facility that we know they've been upscaling to manufacture additional components for ballistic missiles. And so people know enough at this point to say, yes, this was significant, but it wasn't significant to the point that will force them to retaliate publicly to this attack.
Also, I think that it's important to mention that the IDF destroyed their S300 batteries. I think at least 3 or 4 batteries, which is significant because now they're vulnerable to additional attacks from the IDF with lower level airplanes. And they have no defense systems. So if I was the Iranians, I would think twice before launching an attack against Israel.
Do we know that there are no air defense systems? We've knocked out a bunch of them.
At least three or 4.
Yeah, but how many do they have?
Tomer, do you know how many air defense systems do they have?
I think
none right now.
I don't think that's true.
Even if they have barely. I put you down there all the thing about the defense system. You can go through it. There is the S300, and then they have short missile that cannot help with.
Okay, so let me go through it. Okay, so the attack also disrupted their GPS systems and radar systems in several areas in Iran. So it was destabilized or neutralized before the Israeli attack.
Have you heard the reports of what it looks like?
What?
So the Iranian guy, let's call it radar technician, is sitting in his room in the control station, Aryaba, their air traffic control centers, and his radar screens just freeze, all of them at the same time. And that just goes to show you how much of an element electronic warfare now plays in this war.
So they're blind, basically.
They're blind. And again, so they say 100 Israeli aircraft. Let's break down what that means. You have F-35s, you have F-15, different variants of it, F-16, various variants of it, possibly unmanned aircraft too, doing relay and other things for communication and possibly other assets that we don't exactly know about, air fueling vessels, and intelligence and electronic warfare aircraft. And some of those things, just imagine the image, they have all these systems in the air, and from one minute to the next, their radar systems are all down, and they're blind to what's happening in the sky. And that shows you the technological superiority of the Israeli Air Force. It's not just the army as a whole. The Air Force is able to knock out their systems. So to Tomel's point, they have many more missiles. Some are shorter range, some are longer range. I think the main point is, and this was the same case that happened back in April, when we responded to that, what was it, the April 14th attack?
We struck one S300 battery.
And it's symbolic. It's like, everyone pay attention. We know there are going to be images of this. We want you to know this is the best that Russia's placed within Iranian hands. And we were able to punch through it in a way that didn't even allow them to lock on targets and knock out a system. And in this case, we knocked out a bunch of them. So it's very substantial in its psychological effect. And Tomo, to your point, it's very significant in the sense of if Iranian government is thinking about how we respond now to Israel, they're always thinking in the back of their head, well, we thought we can rely on this system, that system.
It's also not good for Russia's military export plans. I mean,
have you heard the reports of that kind of stuff? I watched, I think it was like 2 or 3 months ago, there was a series of documentaries and then documents that came out that sort of, they riff on communication between Russia and its allies. So again, Russia's this huge weapons exporter, as is the US. And let's say, we're friends, so Yair, I give you gifts, and my gifts are weapon systems, missiles, planes, tanks, whatever the embargo allows us to trade. Whatever we're able to trade in, but I charge you full price for it. So you're paying me a substantial chunk of your defense budget every year. And then what happens? Georgia, who's sort of like this, proxy state or under the thumb of the Russians, to a certain degree at least, in several other countries. Look at what's been happening between Russia and Ukraine, and between Russian air defense systems and Israel. They're like, wait a minute.
Why do I need these defenses?
Wait a minute. You sold me something that doesn't work. And again, it's hard to know what really happened behind the scenes. The reports were cancellations of orders, so hundreds of millions of dollars that are canceled. And then people that have a system that they paid a fortune for and are paying maintenance costs and upkeep and all these different things and training, and they find out that the system has 30% of its missiles are duds or something like that. So as far as like a prestige image issue goes, Russia's taking a substantial blow.
No, and just look at the Israeli defense systems, the Arrow 2, 3, David Sling, and the Iron Dome anti-rocket defense systems. They have a 99% accuracy in dismantling incoming projectiles or rockets, ballistic missiles, etc. The only thing that we're lacking now within our defense systems is the ability to identify and knock down drones that are flying very low and slow. So this is like the missing link in the defense systems of Israel.
Look like the defense system is like Israel, supposed to be multiplied by layers, like an onion, but it's all Russian-made, and Russian-made is not that working, apparently. So I put you how they can defend themselves, if it's interesting for you.
It is interesting, and I think, again, we talk about these things, and you look at the isolated event. So the isolated event was like, okay, on the tactical level, a couple days ago, Israel was, 1-0 to the Israeli team. But the game is actually much more complex. It's a multi-layered game of Israel, Russia, the U.S. interest, and again, like we love, thumping ourselves on the chest. Israel doesn't stand alone. We're equipped with some of the best, not all of the best, but some of the best of the American industry.
Yeah, maybe second best. America likes to keep the best for themselves.
Some of the weapon systems remain in the U.S., but we have much of their best systems in air defense, in air attack, in aircraft, in countless other vessels.
Cyber security systems and offensive systems.
So this is games of two different teams attacking each other, and the U.S. has been a great ally in front of the state of Israel, providing us a lot of good weaponry. Yeah. And the same happens to Russia. If you look at their system and their ability to defend Iran, it's been compromised to a great degree. And let's get into their mind.
Into the Iranian mind?
Into the Iranian mind. Yeah. So we've penetrated their intelligence in the IRGC.
Yeah, by assassinating Ismail Haniyeh.
Yeah.
Yes, so using IRGC members to do the assassination.
So there was one conversation. It's like, well, I don't know if I can trust those guys, but these are my guys, and I know I can trust them. And then they find out,
no, I can't trust them.
I can't trust them at all. And then the next week, well, I know the Israeli Air Force is strong, and I know the American Air Force backs it.
But we have the S300 aerial defense systems, so I can trust them.
And then the next week,
nope, can't trust them no more.
They can't. Well, maybe they knocked out some of the S300. At least the radar system and the control system that's running all the computer simulations, it still works. And then the next week, that's offline too.
It doesn't work. Yeah.
And again and again and again. And they say, well, we know we can always. So they're playing this multi-game, almost like multiple playing boards at the same time. Well, if you can't strike from Iran, the Houthis in Yemen, they'll fire, and they haven't been able to stop them. And then we stop them. Yeah. Then the Iraqis, well, let's fire a ballistic missile. Bless you. Let's fire a ballistic missile from Iraq into Israel, and then we stop that. We were talking about this earlier this week in one of the Boots of the Grounds reports. The Iranians are pressuring all their neighbors in that region. Don't dare allow the Israeli Air Force to fly over your airspace. So what does the Israeli Air Force do? Flies through Iraq. So it's like, so Iraq is now making claims like, come on guys, you're essentially, half of the country is controlled or influenced by Iranian militias. So like on that level, it's been very substantial for Israel. Very substantial.
Yeah, but also all of this is happening while the supreme leader of Iran, we keep receiving these reports that he's very ill, that he's very old. he's above 80. And he's
85 years old.
85 years old. And there is no...
I remember that because it was in yesterday's script.
Yeah, because so there's no clear successor. So they're trying to groom his son to be a replacement. But I don't know, I didn't hear much about his son, did you? So I don't know if
I never heard his name before this week.
Yeah, exactly. So there were other supposed successors, but they were out of the picture, out of the game. America neutralized one of them, Qasem Soleimani, and others in the Iranian regime. So that will change a lot, I think, because this is like a very centralized leadership in Iran.
Yeah, it's very much character-based or charismatic leader-based.
Yeah.
Because you think about it, like every president they've had in quite a few years, let's say over 10 years, I'm like running this through my head.
Except for, what's his name? Yeah.
I put you in purple, who is the son.
Yeah, Mujtaba Khamenei.
What's his name?
Mujtaba.
Maybe. Actually, it's a pretty good.
No, but we talked about him yesterday in the episode of.
We can pronounce him. Yeah.
Of Boots on the Ground. Again, a 55-year-old. We talked about this, but this is what it is. And if you analyze Iranian power, but also several other countries that are similar, they're character-based. So it's not just that they have elections. and they have a president, they have a prime minister, they have a foreign minister, they have a finance minister. They have
Yeah,
all
but all of these people just, salute the supreme leader and do as he's telling them.
They're also all replaceable.
Yes.
And I think that's the key. If they screw up, so they say, okay, so-and-so, Ahmadinejad, he's served his, his whatever he's able to bring to the table, and now it's time to, move on to the next guy because his image is tarnished, because he's made mistakes publicly. Khamenei has always been this like overarching character, the spiritual leader, where he's like untouchable almost in the public eye, and him being sick and weakened. And we've seen some of the footage of him. You remember in recent months of him looking fearfully to the sky. Like I think slowly but surely, his public image of being untouchable is slowly breaking away. Yeah. And now with these reports of his sickness and not having a properly selected successor, it could be something that would really weaken the Tehran government, and I imagine it will.
Yeah, for sure.
Israeli society, we can withstand a replacement of the Prime Minister, the Minister of Defense, all of them. We could have elections, it could all be replaced, and the next day, our government, our military would continue to function almost at the same degree that it functioned the day before the elections. In Iran, that's not the case.
Yeah.
They're based strongly, since Iranian Revolution, on the character of a spiritual leader.
But on the other hand, their Prime Minister or President was, he died in a helicopter crash by helicopter, and then the day after, everything was business as usual. So as long as the supreme leader is okay, they can run very smoothly. But if something happens to him, we need to know what's happening, because it didn't happen, for 40 years? How long is he in power?
79.
79. So a lot of time.
Yeah.
Well.
But he's still using the X. He just got banned from X platform.
From Twitter.
Elon Musk banned him?
Yeah, that's what happened this morning.
Well, good thing. But he's still threatening Israel. He's saying that we did a mistake, that the Iranian people are strong, and that they will respond severely, and we did a grave mistake by attacking them. So, and that they keep the right to return fire or to respond in order to defend their people.
I wouldn't expect any less from them.
Yeah.
If you're looking at the game, I think everyone's objective, and we talked about this in several previous podcasts, was to bring things back to where they were before this. It was like 2 or 3 steps of escalation, to allow trade to continue in the Arabian Sea, to allow the Iranian government to say, look, like we've done what we needed to do, we're moving back to like a lower intensity proxy war, and to allow Israel to sort of start like scaling back on its military active operations in Lebanon and the Gaza Strip, but also like to eliminate the omnipresent threat of Iranian involvement in that, be it by ballistic missiles or Houthi missiles or something like that. And I feel like we're there. They had that attack. It was significant in Israeli eyes.
You think they will not attack us back now?
They will, but I think to a smaller degree. Enough to allow Israel not to respond to it.
Yeah.
That's my expectation.
Well, I don't know. How many missiles do they have that they can just keep launching missiles that will be intercepted?
Apparently a lot less than what they had previously.
Yeah.
Again, you never know. That it's not like they have like press releases
on the missile amounts,
declaring the numbers of missiles that they have. But what we've heard is that they've had limited numbers of ballistic missiles. The dud number or percentage of their missiles has been very high. So they lost on several of the launches. The April launch and the early October launch, they lost over, let's say, close to 20% of a lot of what they launched fell on the way or fell within Iran. And I've seen some images, it's terrible. You see some of their ballistic missiles sort of launch from the launch site, turn around and fall back to the place where they launched from.
Well, like what we've seen in the Gaza Strip with the rockets, but it's a completely different
technology.
Different from them. Definitely.
You would expect something different from them.
But so now they cannot produce anymore.
They can produce some of the components,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Because we harmed their ability to create, what is it? Unliquid fuel?
It's solid fuel.
Something like that?
So they have solid fuel mixers that mix whatever. Again, because some of these ballistic missiles, without getting too techie here, there's ones that are ready for launch, and there's ones that need to have the fuel. They need to be fueled before a strike. Fueled before a strike, I think some of the U.S. old air defense systems or ballistic intercontinental ballistic missiles had to be fueled, and it would take minutes or hours to fuel before a strike. So the Iranians had a factory that was manufacturing, I think, the solid fuel mixers. So for missiles that can be pulled out from whatever they are and immediately launched, we knocked out one of those factories. That doesn't mean they don't have an ability. It does identify the fact that our intelligence superiority is overwhelming compared to the Iranian government.
It's really nice to see it, especially after the October 7th failure of our intelligence, to see that we were able to get back on our feet regarding Hezbollah, regarding even the Houthis, and regarding Iran.
Yeah, and you would imagine it carries a toll on their population. Because, and again, think anyone who's in the military then, whatever the press is saying, they're like, no, I know, I have a friend, Mahmoud, in so-and-so unit, and he said that the missile hit the exact factory where just the day before they moved that machine in. So it shows you our intelligence is, one, well-researched, but two, also up-to-date. And so same as Hezbollah attacks, it's like they can't get ahead of our intelligence. They move something, they hide it, they reposition it.
And we find it,
and within, and then when we attack, it's like, in their mind, they're thinking, we just hid that the other day. How did they know where it was? So now they're questioning everyone. Maybe that guy, he's the leak. Maybe this guy's the leak. So on many levels, we're
cracking down the organization.
We're weakening them.
Definitely. But regardless, still, Hezbollah is launching hundreds of rockets towards Israel. I mean, every other day. So the situation is
to lesser and lesser degrees.
Less accurate, except for the drone that hit the Prime Minister's office.
Drones.
Multiple? Was it
three? It was three. So I think one went into the window and several others were shot down or crashed just outside.
That's a pretty impressive intelligence capability of the Iranians or Hezbollah, whoever gave them the intelligence.
Yeah, I mean, another way to look at it would be that up to a certain point, there were rules to the engagement. Like Hezbollah respected the rules. They would target Israeli military or quasi-military targets.
Well, I think that
when they could.
I think we stopped respecting the rules when we, terminated Hassan Nasrallah and other leaders.
I don't know. That was part of the same engagement. We were always targeting their executives. That never changed. But they would respond towards military targets, and they wouldn't intentionally bomb civilian targets. That all changed in the last month. Now they're trying to cause damage. They're doing sort of cluster bombings of Kiryat Shmona. Cities, trying to get whatever civilian population and cause damage in city centers. They're trying to overwhelm the air defense systems, unsuccessfully so far. And then I'd say the drones, in my mind, I would look at that as it's the best of what they were able to execute. The best of their drones, the best equipment they have from the Iranians, and they're clustering several of them to try and get something that would be a symbolic target. The private residence of our prime minister in Sicily.
Which is not a secret location. Everybody knows that he lives there. Yeah.
But still,
definitely.
It shows something.
But it made a crack on the window or something like that because the window is bulletproof.
Still.
So even if he was there, it wouldn't have harmed him.
Yeah, but you can imagine that anyone on the Israeli decision-making side looks at that and says,
this is a failure.
Whatever we were doing to hold ourselves back now of collateral damage, of something that's going to be a substantial number of casualties in the Hezbollah if we drop a bomb there, that's off the table now. In the sense of that we're no longer considering the collateral damage of that. We're going to use everything we can because they're doing everything they can.
Including finding spies within Israel.
Yeah.
We found multiple Israeli spies that are cooperating and sending footage, images, and other materials regarding military installations and strategic locations to the Iranians.
Unsuccessful spies.
Because they were caught.
That's the point.
Well, we don't know exactly what they delivered.
There have been vague publications about what
pictures of military bases.
What information they disclosed. Right. It's the kind of things that didn't leave a mark in our defense. As a country or as an intelligence sort of entity, it didn't leave a substantial dent. I'd say if we're going down this, I always say bunny hole, it's a rabbit hole, the correct term. If we're going down the rabbit hole, the biggest defense we've had on an intelligence level in the recent months even has been from the U.S. administration.
That they have been leaking super critical stuff.
Yeah, this sounds like red flag conspiracies and stuff like that. The American government has leaked documents in a way they've never done before against the state of Israel, and it was from within let's call it top-tier intelligence organizations within the U.S. Government.
Yeah, and this is right before we orchestrate the operations or the maneuvers or the airstrikes, because up until now we would notify the United States a few minutes or a few hours before an intended strike or an operation, on most cases.
Yeah, I mean, our government responded to these leaks, and we said publicly that it hurt some of our planning that had to do to the response with Iran. It probably actually postponed some of the planned attacks. I've heard theories, and this is not corroborated in like an official sense.
They put you downstairs, the FBI stuff.
That it goes all the way into the White House. Yeah, I don't know that I wanted to go into the names on air. I feel like it's like these kind of things. It's like some of it is like circumstantial evidence, where there are people within the White House and the Biden, and specifically linked to Kamala Harris. And again, all of this ties into the upcoming U.S. elections, that have documented some of their public appearances and some of their policy documents. And these are people that come from the right background to fit into this. One is Pakistani, one is from Muslim descent. They've said things that are pro-terrorism in the past, pro-Hezbollah, pro-other organizations. They've said things that are anti-Semitic in their nature in the past. And people have made these accusations. I'm not saying that this is what happened. I'm saying that there's been a lot of like sources that are claiming that this is the case, that from within President Biden's own team, people leaked these documents. And I would say it's feasible that someone very, very high up in or the Pentagon or the CIA or the White House was the one behind this.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of disturbing, I guess, especially now, and especially with the, I mean, we need the United States in order to win this war and in order to survive.
I'll tell you why I don't like saying these kind of names, because so the source for this is Sky News in Arabic, and they're blaming an official within the White House, and they're blaming her because she's not actually, it says Iranian descent. She's, I think, Pakistani in her descent. She has a classification that would allow her access to this kind of information. But this also sounds like the kind of thing that if I was trying to weaken the Biden or the Harris campaign, I would leak. And I feel like you need to be super careful with these kind of statements. Yeah. Because to the same degree, if you wanted to hurt the Trump campaign, you would try to leak something that would indicate that high people within his team are compromised in one way or another.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened in previous elections in the US. So I'd say, look, everything that has to do with like making these kind of accusations, I tread lightly. I tread lightly because the US has been an incredible ally for the state of Israel. And
we need him.
And also, this is like a second layer of conspiracy. Sometimes the Israeli and American government leak things together intentionally.
Maybe it was like a way to shift their attention to a different location, a different thing, a different part of Iran, we carried out the attack in a different location.
It's the force and move in a negotiation, because we started with this: the Iranians, the Israelis, the Americans. There's been this public negotiation that's been happening over global news outlets.
Yeah.
Israel's saying nothing will stop us. We'll do everything we can to damage the Iranians. The Iranians are saying, we understand you're going to attack, but if you do this, we won't be able to, to move on with to the next item on the agenda. And the Americans did a huge list of things to sort of shift the discussion and the decision. They promised certain munitions to the Israelis. They used a B-29 bomber? Yeah. A B-29 bomber to bomb in Yemen, which is sort of this, again, there's a whole almost like doctrine of how that bomber is used in warfare, and so it's like this show of power of we're not afraid because this is the plane that can drop the bunker buster, Moab, and so again it's like all these power projections, all to say Israel do this and Iranians sort of shut up and stay in the corner because you had this coming, and I think it worked in a very odd way.
Well, yeah, it did, but I don't know. Do you think that Iran will attack us anytime soon?
Yes.
Us as Israel, or do you think that they will attack like strategic symbols in the world, like embassies, schools, synagogues?
They've tried, but look at what's been released in the press in Israel, to the public with no censorship. You have information about Israeli Arabs that were part of cells that were recruited by the Iranians, who willingly cooperated with an Iranian agenda.
Yeah.
So they've been trying. They've recruited weak elements within Israeli society. They've been trying. They've been putting money into it, and probably
a lot of money,
hundreds
of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, a lot more effort than we can imagine to try and get that, unsuccessfully so far. And they've tried to attack Israeli targets or Jewish targets outside of the country, unsuccessfully so far.
Yeah.
And we're talking a lot. There were weeks where I think every other day we'd be hearing about an embassy here or a JCC, a Jewish community center elsewhere, something. They're trying.
So do you think they'll keep trying?
I look at it differently. Do you think a regime that's been consistent in their ideology and their practices is going to change overnight because of an air raid? I don't think so.
No.
Why would they?
No, makes sense. And unless the supreme leader dies and the successor has different plans, which is kind of far-fetched because he's the son of Ali Khamenei.
I feel like that kind of government, and by I feel I mean history indicates that kind of government doesn't just go away peacefully.
They fight till the death.
They fight because when there's a transition of government, it's not like several ministers go home.
No, it's families, tribes.
10% of the population loses their job. You know, and you have people that have been holding a grudge against the secret police and against the intelligence apparatus and against, you know, that guy that harmed them and, you know, the corrupt government protected. Again, there's a lot of social tension that goes to this. Yeah. All of that's going to come to the surface if the government changes there.
Well, any optimistic thoughts? Can we have a peace with Iran anytime soon?
No.
No.
No, I don't think that should be on the table. Peace in the
region.
What were you saying, Alon?
He was just laughing. At the peace with Iran statement.
Alon's laughing at the idea. Look, let's put it this way: peace is made by partners that have a lot to lose from not going to peace,
or a lot to gain from signing peace.
Both. And the Iranians right now are not at the point where it would be too painful for them not to reach an agreement with Israel. And they have no reason to reach an agreement with Israel. And we have no reason to engage with them. Like, what would they say in a negotiation where it would in any way like bring peace to our minds?
No, plus, yeah, it makes sense because we have a lot more to gain from reaching peace agreement with Saudi Arabia and with other moderate Arab states in this region. Economically, we can reach a lot more. And also with trade and aerial, I don't know, just flying above their countries and, you know.
We already had it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
but I don't know that a peace agreement is the correct term. The correct term would be accords.
Exactly.
And I say this because this is a conversation.
Economic accords or economic agreements.
I have a conversation with my kids. The kids will ask, like, do we have a peace agreement with, like, Switzerland? It's like, we don't need to. It's like, why? Because we've never had a war with them. You don't have to sign a peace treaty if you've never been at war with these people.
Yeah.
And I'd say, to your point, the Abraham Accords are a great indication of what happens, like the virtuous cycle of people that don't have a reason not to cooperate. Like, our interests are aligned with the Saudis, and when it comes to trade and when it comes to technological exchange and information exchange, as they were with the UAE, as they were with several other countries that were involved in this. Yeah. And it will bring peace and prosperity to a lot of countries. The Iranians, for all we care, can just sit on the side and be uninvolved in this. And as long as they're deterred...
But they won't. Because, you know,
again, it's not a yes, and it's not binary. It's not yes, are they bad, or yes, are they good. It's what
are they gaining from disturbing this peace agreement and destabilizing the region?
No, but when it comes to the scale of like risk aversion or absolute risk taking, are they going to be at 10% or are they going to be at 90%? Are they going to try to bomb, you know, like Israeli ships in the Red Sea? Are they going to try to kidnap Israeli civilians abroad? Are they going to try to send ballistic missiles to the heart of Tel Aviv? Or are they just going to continue to slowly fund Hezbollah and maybe Hamas? Two very different questions.
Yeah, we'll see.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand.
But it sometimes look like we see half of the picture and we can
in what sense?
Finish with that.
Thomas is making a valid point. He's saying that the Iranians, once again, they continue with these games like power projection.
Like military games, yeah.
Yeah, military games and stuff like that. We're going to show you how powerful we are. This is more of the usual.
Yeah.
This has always been the way they operate. What we tried to do in this last attack was to indicate strongly to the Iranian government, one, what level of risk we're able to take, two, what level of capabilities does that risk go with, and we indicated strongly that we on the side of let's call it conservancy and however that's pronounced, conservancy and risk. We're willing to take a very high risk, sending 100 aircraft to attack a foreign country across an ocean.
That's pretty risky.
It's pretty risky.
Yeah, more than 1,500 kilometers, which is whatever miles, 1,000 miles or
900
something.
miles,
right?
Yeah. So we did that. We took a substantial risk, and it paid off. Yeah. And now the power projection to the world is, look at what we did. And like if you were the gorillas in the jungle, like, oh, you know, like, look at how strong we are.
And we also showed pictures of the pilots, like not the faces, but it's also women pilots, men pilots, like the variety, which to the Iranians I think is like kind of hard for them to see that the attacks were carried out by women as well.
I think it's intentional.
I know, for sure, yeah.
The IDF spokesperson is very, very intentional in the way they control the message that comes out, as is everyone.
Yeah, he's very smart, the IDF spokesperson. I know you,
all of them,
you know him.
I've met him once or twice. But to your point, yeah, there were a series of images that came out before this thing. Some of them, by the way, were psychological warfare because they released images
nothing to do with the attacks.
Aircraft that weren't part of the actual attack,
yeah.
Which is very interesting. And I saw someone else who's like more in depth on like the military analysis, showing that these were intercept jets and not the actual bombing jets.
Yeah.
But then they show images of women in the cockpit of these aircraft, and it's sort of like if you're equating Israel and Iran, a regime that doesn't allow women to hold jobs in certain professions, stuff like that, and then the other one is sending women to bomb that other country. It speaks greatly about the narrative and the culture and the values of those societies.
Oh, definitely.
And I feel pride in that. I see a young woman with with like her hair in what do you call it?
Ponytail?
In braids. Did you see that thing that was trending about a woman that braids her hair like that? She means business.
No, I didn't.
It trended on like Israeli social media. Anyway, and you see that, I was like, I feel pride as a country that we're able to raise leaders and fighters of that level, both for men and women in society.
No, definitely. No, I think it's a good time to complete this podcast on this note. That Israel once again proved that it is superior in its military capabilities. Also, we proved that we're not striking civilians in our attacks. Yes. We're striking military targets. We're striking missile launchers, facilities that create more weapons that can threaten our survival. And sadly, this is the war and the region that we're at. But I think we proved to our enemies and to our allies as well that we are strong and that we mean business and we want to be here.
Guys, if you've stuck around this far, that means you're probably enjoying this content. And if you're part of the audience that we have that doesn't subscribe yet to this content, we need you to pause this video and subscribe right now. If it's live or you're watching it later, you'll be able to pick up with the video. Pause for a second, press that little subscribe button wherever you're watching this, be it the podcast store or on YouTube, and then press the little bell to make sure you never miss another episode. Then take another second, share this and like it, because it really helps us reach people around the world. And that's our goal, Yair. Our goal is reaching people around the world with this message, with the message of truth from Israel. So thank you for sticking with us, and make sure you share, you like, and you subscribe.
Nice. Nicely done, Mati. And guys, if you want to understand or to support us in another way and also bring a part of TBN Israel to your house, you can do so by going to our merchandise online shop. Okay, you can go to our website at tbnisrael.com, go to the shop there, and also on YouTube here you see a bunch of items that we have, from mugs to stickers to shirts like this one, and everything that you buy will help us also create more content and will help us share the truth by you just wearing our merchandise. And it's actually pretty nice shirts. Mati doesn't wear them yet for some reason.
They haven't arrived in the mail.
Just a few days ago, we celebrated reaching 1 million subscribers on YouTube, and I think it's amazing.
Well done.
Yeah, congratulations.
Well done.
Yeah,
well done.
In a short time, I think it's really significant, and I want to say thank you to all of you for subscribing, for sharing, for sticking with us, for commenting, and for praying for Israel in this war on multiple fronts. So thank you so much, and keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.